always going to be like that. There's always going to be different imaginations, and it's and particularly in a place like Bangalore, which is open to change, new and different imaginations will keep overlaying the older ones, and all of them will actually have to coexist in real time, because somebody's imagination of what Bangalore city means even right now is different from what somebody else thinks of Bangalore as. And interestingly, now that you mentioned that, what is happening now in the Mythic Society, for instance, they are on a huge project led by a software engineer. Of course, this is Bangalore, it has to be a software engineer who has given up his job and taken a 3-year sabbatical to do what? It's a very lovely, interesting project. He is digitizing the inscription stones of Bangalore. Okay, and the inscription stones hold so much of the history of Bangalore.
And they date to what time?
Dated to what time?
Yeah.
So this is, let me tell you a little bit more about that. So the story of the founding of Bengaluru.
Yeah.
The most popular story, the official story, is that it began in 1537 and was founded by Kempe Gowda. And to an extent that is true. That fort town of Bengaluru, which is the Pete or the Peta, that is dated to 1537 for sure. But the inscriptions, and there is another very apocryphal story of the founding of Bangalore, a legend which dates back to the Hoysala time, which is 11th century or so, 11th, 12th century. 11th century I would say, which is about Veera Ballala II, who I already mentioned in a different context, who apparently was on a hunting trip and he lost his way in the forest. He was chasing after a stag, he got separated from his retinue, night began to fall, the wolves' howls and the tigers' roars were getting too much. He was looking for a place to stay, a safe space, he needed something to eat, and he saw a fire in a distance and said, if there is a fire, there is human habitation, I will ride towards that. He rode towards it, found that it was the cooking fire of a little old woman who was making herself a very frugal meal of boiled beans. But the king was so desperately hungry and used to being a king, so he said, can I please have something to eat, even though he knew that that's all there was. And the old woman, without a clue as to who this person was, because in those days they never knew what their king looked like, she generously gave him more than half her frugal meal and said, please eat and you sleep. And the next morning, when his retinue found him and the old woman realized he was the king and was a little overwhelmed, Veera Ballala is supposedly supposed to have said that, I can't just go away without doing something appropriately kingly. So what can I do? So he said, in honor of the generosity of this little old woman, this town shall henceforth be called the town of boiled beans, Benda Kaal Uru, which went through many iterations and became Bengaluru.